I want to talk about wrappers. Oh, not this kind of wrapper, but in Java there is a wrapper class, not spelled with a W though. Let me see if I can. I'm sorry, not spelled with an R, spelled with a W. It's a different kind of wrapper. All right, never mind. So in Java there are these things called wrapper classes, and I'll open up the quick reference, and you should already be kind of familiar with some of this anyway. This is the Java quick reference. And we've already talked about this integer, capital I, integer.min value and integer.max value. You can use that to set some number to the largest or smallest being most negative integer value that Java permits. But there's these other functions that we haven't really talked about. This first one, integer, it takes an int value, and then int value returns an int. I know this seems a little bit funny, but we're going to go over these real quick. And then the same for double. There's this capital D double, and you can pass it a double value, and double value returns a double. I know it all seems a bit confusing, but I will go over it, and I'm sure you will understand this. And this is, again, on the quick reference, so as long as you kind of get it, you don't have to memorize it, it's on your quick reference. So let's take a look at an example of this wrapper class. And I'm going to try to draw on the side, so hopefully that works for you. So here, just to review, I have created this class, and inside of it, here I am in a main method. And I've created two integers, int n1, int n2. I'm setting them both equal to 5. So if I run this right now, of course, n1 equals n2, they're both equal to 5, so that should run. If I run it, it'll say true, and I'll do it just to prove it to you. Yes, in fact, it says true. These are called integer primitives, and we've talked about this before. So, I mean, I'm basically saying 5 equals 5. Yes, that's true. That's absolutely true. These are not objects. Things are a little bit different when you talk about objects. And of course, you can also, Java is an object-oriented language, you can also create integers as objects. And sometimes this is referred to as the wrapper class, because an object sort of they think of it as a box that kind of wraps around the primitive integer value, if that makes any sense. And I'll try to draw a picture of that. So you can use, instead of saying int num1, you can use this capital I and write out the whole word. Integer num1 equals new integer, and you can see that I'm creating a new integer object, and it's going to have the value of 7. This is referred to as boxing. I'm putting 7, some integer value, into a box. It turns out that you can actually, just like with strings, you don't actually have to use the keyword new to create one of these integer objects. You can actually just say integer whatever equals some number, and it'll automatically box it. Just like with strings, you can say new string whatever, or you can just put the string in quotes. This auto boxing idea, where it automatically creates a new integer, it's not on the AP exam, don't worry about it. So maybe just to make this less confusing, let's just keep it as what you do need to know. So you do need to know what this does. This would create a new integer with a value 7. This would create a new integer with a value 7 as objects. So like if I drew a picture of that, for example, so I have this integer called num1. Boy, I'm going to very badly try to draw a picture of this. So here's my integer called num1. And again, these are objects. So I'm going to point it to this integer, this thing in a box, which has 7, and I have another integer. Yeah, I know I'm not writing that great here. Okay, and I'm pointing to another box, and that also has the value 7. And you know, when you're talking about objects, num1 and num2 are just holding addresses of objects. They're pointing to these things. So down here, when I run this, you probably know already what's going to happen. If I say print num1 equals num2, I should get false, because in fact they're pointing to different things, and I will get false. If I use dot equals, you know that dot equals is how you compare objects. I will get true, and I'll run it just to prove that to you. And if I use this function dot int value, what that is doing when you run int value on an integer, it takes it out of the box, so to speak. It gives you the value of the thing in the box. So here I will also get true. num1.int value gives me the integer value. Equals num2.integer value, that gives me the value. That's called unboxing. And just a couple more things at the end, and then I will run this real quick. There are cases where Java will automatically box and unbox. Again, you don't need to know this, but if you wrote, if you had this integer, this object integer num1, and you added 100, that you're not going to get an error. It'll automatically, Java knows like, oh well, I guess he wants the value of num1, and I'll add 100 to it. It'll automatically unbox. It's called auto unboxing. You don't really need to know that. If I do this, num1.toString, that'll give me the value of this thing as a string, and when I add 100, you'll see it'll just concatenate that. So let me actually compile and run this thing, and then you'll see what's going on here, and we can verify that everything works as expected. So you can see num1 equals num2 false, because these are not the same object. You would not want to do this with integer objects. Don't compare integer objects or any other objects with equals unless you are trying to test to see if they are the same object. But all right, unlikely that you would do this with integers. If you want to compare integer objects, you should use .equals, or you can take them out of the box by saying, give me the value, num1.int value, num2.int value. That's called unboxing. So again, in this third case, we got true. And then here in this, when we tried to add 100, it did automatically take it out of the box, and we got 107. When I used the toString method, it returned it as a string, and then it concatenated 100. Really, the correct way of doing this would be, I don't want to say the correct way, but the way that you would typically write this is you would say, give me the value, int value of this thing, and then add 100. I mean, again, auto unboxing does work, but it's not. You don't need to know when it's going to happen, or you don't need to know the details of it. So you can really just use the int value thing to take it out of the box. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's see. I guess I don't know why I drew pictures of these things. I mean, you know what this obviously equals doesn't work, but .equals works. All right. Let's just take a look at the next example. Actually, let me just comment this back out here. So the same deal, and this is going to be real quick here, the same deal also works for doubles. You can create a double object, and here I've created a double object D. It's a new double, 3.14, and I can get the value of it by saying D.doubleValue. That pulls it out of the box. You can do the same thing for Booleans. Boolean B equals new Boolean. I can pull it out of the box. This is actually not part of the AP subset. You do need to know this for the AP exam, and you do need to know about integer objects for the AP exam. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, when would I ever use this? Well, I'm glad you're thinking that. You would typically use this. I mean, there's more than one case when you use this, but typically you use this in array lists, because array lists are only allowed to contain objects. So you can't put normal ints into an array or doubles into an array list. I hope I said array list the first time. You can only put integer objects or double objects or other objects as well. So here's a little summary of what you need to know for this. You need to know how to create a new integer object. So here's an example of that. This is a new integer object. In this case, I'm creating it to be 25. It's called boxing. I'm taking an integer and I'm putting it in a box, making an object. You need to know how to take it out of the box, how to get the value of that thing, and that's just using the int value method. And then, of course, you need to know how to get the biggest and smallest integer values. We've talked about that before. When I say smallest, I mean most negative. So here's examples of that. You need to know how to do the same thing with doubles. You need to know how to create a double object, to take it out of the box. And then you should be aware, in this last example here, you should be aware that if you create two new integer objects and you try to compare them with equals equals, you will get false because these are different objects. X and Y both are equal to the value 3, but these are different objects. So if you want to compare integer objects, just like every other object, you need to use dot equals, that'll work, or actually compare to also works. You'll get the value 0 when you try to compare these two. So that was pretty quick. Hopefully that makes sense. You don't need to know a whole lot about wrappers, and again, it's all on your reference sheet, so hopefully that works for you.